welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. In this week's episode, we are going to be changing shark bait's oil. And the first step in doing an oil change, at least the first step that you should do in doing an oil change on your Harley Davidson motorcycle, is getting the engine nice and hot. So that's what we're doing right now. All right, engine's nice and hot. I can feel it on my leg. I've just kind of been bebopping through town for a little bit after hitting the highway there. So I will see you guys back at the garage. All right, now that we got shark bait here back in the garage, the first step before you do anything, glove up. Depending on the type of drain pan you got, you might be able to get all 3 holes draining at once. So that's what we're going to try to do. Now in order to do this, you're going to need a 5/8 socket. So let's do that. Make sure you pull this before you do anything. I've made that mistake before. Boy, this is hard to do with one hand. Set your drain plug aside. Let that start to drain, and then you can pop the other one. Now we can do the primary. The engine takes the longest to drain because there's the most oil in it. Like as I was getting up, I could already tell that my transmission was not that bad. Now Harley Davidson was really cool when they did this. They made all 3 drain plugs the same torque spec and the same size nut or bolt. So that's kind of nice. Now another part of draining your engine oil, goes a lot faster and a lot smoother if you pull the filter too. So we are going to try to use this thing. This thing is designed, it's from Harley, Harley made it. It's designed to try to keep the oil off your bike. This goes around the filter housing, and then you put that drain hose into the drain pan, and hopefully it works. It worked pretty good last time I used it, but some people have some issues. Fits great upside down, but it doesn't do that right side up. For some reason, I don't know. I've never been able to really get it perfect. Kind of like that. You attach your drain hose, just like that. Make sure it's seated. Then you get your filter wrench. Sha-sha. And you basically can just let that kind of sit there. Oh no, what have I done? What have I done? Listen, I'm not perfect, you know? No one is. No one's perfect. That's why I have a lot of shop rags. It's for moments like these. I just struggled for about 5 minutes trying to get that filter thingy on there, and then a bunch of oil dumped out, but that's okay because most of it got caught by the thing, so no big deal. Now that we got the filter off, the drain plug for the engine and the transmission pulled, and that is all draining nice and good. Now what we can do is pull the primary. Let's do that. When doing the primary, sometimes it's better to use a shorter 5/8 socket rather than the deep socket. Just gives you a little bit more room under here. And I know I also said wear gloves, but I had to take them off to grab the camera. It's the first time I've done an oil change while trying to film it. I don't want to get my camera all goopy. All right, primary's draining too. So now we have all 3 holes draining into our drain pan. What you should do during this time, because even if the bike is nice and warmed up and at full operating temperature, it's still going to take a minute for all the fluids to drain out. So what I like to do during this time is clean up my drain plugs. So let's go do that. So this one came out of the engine, and you can see, I don't know if you guys can see that, there's a little bit of material on the magnet. Not bad at all, nothing concerning. The other magnets are basically perfectly clean, nothing on them, makes me happy, but let's clean them up. When I clean these up, I generally speaking just take a rag, kind of wipe off the thread sealant, inspect the O-ring, that kind of stuff. Need something a little bit more absorbent. Every oil change, I will tend to ruin one microfiber cloth, but I like microfiber cloths because they're absorbent and they clean really well. They clean faster than these things. These are good for like mopping up big chunks of oil and puddles of oil on the shop floor, but these ones are good for this kind of thing. And you don't have to worry about getting these all mixed up because they're all the exact same size. So it doesn't matter which one goes into what, as long as you clean them. Okay, now that we've cleaned up all of our oil plugs, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a little pick, we're gonna pull off the O-ring and just take a look at it. Make sure it's still good to go. What you're looking for on these O-rings is that. I don't know if you can see that. Kind of hard to tell on camera, but this one is starting to get eaten away. I wish it would show it a little bit better. But basically, it's starting to deteriorate pretty bad. So this is one I will be replacing. Let's look at the other 2. And this one is good to go. Okay. So we got lucky. I'm only replacing one. Okay. So once you inspect and replace all necessary drain plug O-rings, basically just got to stare at the bike until the oil drain is complete. But what you can do in the meantime is wipe out your funnels. If you keep them on a shelf in your shop, sometimes they get dusty, and you don't want all that material inside of your motor. Heck yeah. I'd say we're good to go. An important thing is make sure that you have a non-steady drip before you put all your drain plugs back in, down to torque, and then start filling with oil. But let's get our drain plugs back in because it looks like we are just about bone dry in there. Let's do that. Okay, when reinstalling your drain plugs, what I like to do, again, making sure they're nice and clean, I like to start it with a normal socket, then I will torque it down at the last minute. The second it kind of starts to snug up, I'll swap to a torque wrench and torque it down to like 21 to 24 foot-pounds, something like that. I do all 3 at 24 foot-pounds. I've never had a leak. Well, this one's gonna be even easier. I can just kind of hand thread them all the way in until I use the torque. 2 and 3. And if you're creative, you can torque all 3 of them down from the same side of the bike. All right. It's already set to 24. Lets you know how many other things I torque around here. Click, 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 click. Click, 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 click. Click, 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 click. Now what you should do is take a rag and wipe that area down. That way when you are putting oil in, if there is something that is messed up or you didn't do one of these steps properly, it's easier to detect a leak faster. So let's do that. So now what we want to do is get that filter completely out and install a new one before we start putting new oil in. Go ahead, take some time, wipe this down, where you're not dripping oil all over your shop, like I tend to. And then before you put the new filter on, there's a couple of things you need to do first. We're going to wipe down the mating surface of where the new oil filter goes on to make sure that we're getting a good seal. Nice and clean. Now the next thing we're going to do is inspect the new filter. You want to make sure that this O-ring is free of dust and debris. Looks like it is. Now the next thing you want to do, now I've heard it both ways. I've heard some people say this is an old wives' tale. You shouldn't have to do this. Well, I've been doing it for as long as I've been on motorcycles. Never had a problem. So I'm doing it. What that thing is putting a little bit of oil in the filter before you install it. It helps prime the engine on that first startup for a fresh oil change. That way you know oil is through the filter already and getting to the parts that it needs to be. And the engine isn't idling for a few seconds without oil in it. Just enough to coat the filter media. And then what you do is you take your finger with a little bit of oil. And you saw me do that. That's just lubing up that mating surface for a good seal. Let's get the new filter on. Very important when installing a new oil filter on your motorcycle. Something to keep in mind. People tend to over-tighten these things. You've seen it on social media. I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence here. But do not, for the love of God, over-tighten your oil filter, because if you take it in the next time to work on it, the tech is going to want to follow you home and kick your dog. Or if you're working on it next time, you're going to follow yourself home and kick your dog. So do not over-tighten this thing. What I've done is I've gotten it as tight as I can with my hand. Now, mind you, my hands are slick. I'm wearing gloves. It's not as good of a grip, but I've gotten it basically as tight as I can with my gloves on, kind of covered in oil. Rule of thumb.
Rule of thumb here is wait, rule of thumb?
Half a turn with your filter wrench after that step has been done. So let's do that. Quarter. All right. Did a little bit more than half a turn. Good to go. So far we've drained all the fluids. We've reinstalled all of our drain plugs to torque spec, lubed up our new oil filter and installed that. The only thing left to do is put all the new fluid in and we're good to go. Okay, now that we are at the stage of adding oil instead of subtracting oil, you need to be aware of which fill is which. Now this big one over here on the left, that's your engine. This little guy over here, which is a pain to get to, is your transmission. Primary's on the other side. It's a whole process. One step at a time. Let's do the engine. Something to be aware of is every bike is just slightly different for some reason. The tolerances, the capacities, maybe when one sump was being milled out, the bit was dull, and there's all sorts of little things that go into it. But a really good rule of thumb.
Can't do much damage with that then, can we?
Perhaps it should have been a rule of wrist.
Is when you're doing the engine, capacity-wise, you use 4 full quarts. Now, some bikes take 4.5 quarts. How you determine how your bike acts is after you have completely done all of the oil, you've put all new oil in the motorcycle, you check your dipstick, you wipe it off, you make a note of where it is, and if it's showing cold full, you're done. But if it's showing a little low, stand the bike up, start it, let it warm up to full operating temperature, put it back on the jiffy stand or kickstand, pull your dipstick again. That'll give you a better idea of exactly how much, if your bike is a 4 or a 4.5. So what I do is I will do it all on the jiffy stand, and I just use this top portion, full hot on jiffy stand. So basically what you're shooting for, or at least what I shoot for, is right here kind of dead set in the middle with it on the jiffy stand. If you do that, you can't go wrong. Shark bait here, I have done 3 oil changes on now, or 2 oil changes on now. Can't remember, I do a lot of oil changes. My bike is 4 and a splash, basically. Will put me right where you want to be. So let's get going on that. Oil changes are one of those things that people get really weird about. Like, very, very, very particular. And I think because some people are like that, it scares a lot of people into doing it themselves if they're not confident. I think that's doing people a big disservice. I think people blow it out of proportion and they make it seem more complicated than it is. Remove old oil, remove old filter, put new oil. That's it. The hardest part people seem to have is capacity and torque. Torque's never gonna change. 21 to 24 foot-pounds, you're done. All 3 of them. Now, as far as capacity, get it as close as you can. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, 1 down, 3 to go. Last one. Like I said, 4 and a splash. This is my splash one. As you can see, I've already done a splash. What am I sitting at right now? A little over 7. I will go to about 5.5. Perfect. Make sure you replace your dipstick. And let's check it. So we are exactly where I want to be. 4 and a splash. All right, that's on. Now let's move on to transmission. Transmission, really easy. 1 quart, basically. Now I have written up there on my whiteboard all of the fluid actual amounts. Now the transmission, the manual for this motorcycle calls for 28 ounces, which is 0.88 of a quart. Is 1 quart gonna hurt it? I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Basically what I do is I just leave a little bit in the bottom. I don't measure out exactly 28 ounces of transmission fluid and put it in there. And again, I have yet to have a problem with any of my Harley Davidsons when it comes to oil or fluids or any of that. If you accidentally put a quart in, I don't think it's that big of a deal. When it's 0.88 of a quart, is 0.9 or 1 quart really gonna hurt it? I leave that information up to you. If you wanna get technical, you can always get a measured flask or something that you can measure out exactly 28 ounces and put in there. But again, all motorcycles are different, so you wanna go off your dipstick. So there you go. Getting to the transmission requires a 3/8 bit. Looks a little bit like that. Do is you feed that guy in there like this. You might need an extension, now that I'm thinking about it. Another way of doing this is using a swivel bit, if you can get it in there, just like that. Oh, thank goodness. Then you can basically just use the bit itself to finish unscrewing it. All right. Again, 0.88, right? So it's basically going to be like down here. Okay. Got a little bit left. Good enough for me. Let's check it on the dipstick. Now the add and full on the transmission dipstick, it's a pretty tight tolerance, right? Your add and your full are really close together. So again, it's really easy to overfill these, but as you saw, I put most of a quart in. I probably actually put like 0.95 of the quart, but let's check it against the dipstick. So as you can see, I'm right in the middle of add and full. So, you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna make our transmission a 1 quart transmission. Not that big of a deal, ladies and gents. Add a little bit more. Good enough. Go ahead and tighten that up. And these don't gotta be crazy tight. Just snug, just like that. All right, that's engine and transmission. Now comes the slightly complicated one, the primary. Now when we put the primary fluid in said motorcycle, you wanna do it with the bike actually off the Jiffy stand and nice and level. So you kinda need a bike lift to do that. If you don't have a bike lift, or you don't have the room for a bike lift, or you're kind of doing this in a gravel lot, just put a cord in. Put a cord in wherever that sits. The primary is the least critical part of the motorcycle when it comes to exact fluid amount, because your primary is a sump, and the spinning clutch pack and spinning primary is actually splashing all that oil where it needs to go. And if you're a little low or a little high on that, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. There is one thing you need to keep in mind when putting oil in your primary, and I'm about ready to show you what that is. The actual thing that you should concern yourself or have any amount of put a little stress on it are these bolts right here. Back in my Softail days, I had actually snapped one of these heads off because the torque spec in the manual was actually too much for these. It's like inch pounds, guys. It's not very tight at all. There's a nice big O-ring on the inside of this primary that does most of the work for you. These things, In fact, when you buy a new motorcycle or a new to you Harley Davidson, or maybe right now, get on your phone, get on Harley Davidson's website and order a couple of sets of these bolts. That way, if you're in your garage and you do snap one off, you can just grab a new one, use some pliers, pull it out if you didn't do too much damage, and throw in a new one. Just my 2 cents. And we are going to be using a T27 to pull this plate off. Primary cover. Break them all loose first. I'm not exactly going by the star pattern, but I will when I secure it. A good way of doing it is pull all of them, break them all loose at first, but then pull all of them out except this top one. That way your nice finish doesn't accidentally get all scratched up when it hits the ground. I like to keep a little positive pressure pushing it in as I take this out. And you can just kind of let it fall into your hand. Bam. Now, when you have this off, you should clean the O-ring and inspect it to make sure there isn't any cracks or debris in there or anything that's gonna make the seal, you know, not seal. Make sure you wipe this surface down with a clean part of your microfiber to make sure everyone's happy and that the little gremlins can't get in there. Now, this part's really simple. This is a primary funnel. Kind of lays in there just like that, allowing you to pour fluid into it. Now again, all of the manuals and every time I've done this, it has basically taken exactly 1 quart, but I'm going to show you exactly what you're looking for. According to the manual, you want to see oil making contact with the lower part. You see those like sawtooth looking things that are going around? You want the oil to be just over the bottom part of that. And for my motorcycle, it's basically been 1 quart every single time. So that's what I throw in there. Now, when reinstalling, I like to start with this top bolt, roll it up to it, and get a couple of turns. Everyone's happy. Obviously, hand thread every single one of these before you start torquing everything down. And then when you do tighten this down, go in a star pattern. Next one. Next one. And I'm not even gonna say what the torque value on these is because that's kind of bit me in the ass before. So what I do is I'll grab my wrench like this and just snug it like that. That way I don't put too much leverage on it, you know? The longer the lever, the more the leverage. Remember math class? So what I do is I will do this. Good enough. Once I feel it getting snug, just till I meet actual resistance. Good. Good. They honestly are like finger tight. Good. Then go once more around it just to make sure nothing got loose when you tightened one of the other ones up. Perfect. So there you have it. All 3 holes, baby. Now what I like to do, because I'm anal retentive, is I like to take a clean...
Only when you are clean will you know my power.
Clean microfiber and a little bit of glass cleaner and go around and kind of wipe down where I put all of my grubby fingerprints. Mainly the primary. Oh, there. Much better. Let's get shark bait off the lift. There you have it, guys. 3-hole oil change on a 2023 Road Glide ST. Now you're good to go for another 3,000 to 5,000 miles before you need to do it all over again. But that's kind of dependent on your intervals that you prefer, because everyone's a little bit different. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode on Blacktop Diaries. Really appreciate you guys stopping by. Leave a like, a comment. If you're not subscribed, it'd be a lot cooler if you were. Thank you if you are a subscriber returning to watch yet another video. I really appreciate you guys. Keep the shining side up, rubber side down. I'll see you guys when I see you.
These are my blacktop diaries, where the roads and mountains are and trees. Throttle wide open to feel again. The blacktop will always be my